So let's talk about carbon credits. You see the term carbon neutral everywhere, right? But what does it actually mean? It can feel like a bit of a Wild West out there. A lot of big claims, but the details can get pretty murky. The big question is, can we trust it? Well, what if I told you there's a rulebook, a system designed to bring some serious order to all that chaos? Let's get into it. And this is really the heart of the matter, isn't it? When a company buys a carbon offset, are they actually funding real, measurable climate action? Or are they just, paying for a clean conscience? The answer could literally shape our planet's future, and it all comes down to one simple but incredibly powerful concept: trust. So, how do you build that in such a complicated market? Well, you start with a rock-solid rulebook, and that's where the Verified Carbon Standard, or VCS, comes in. Think of it like a seal of approval for carbon projects. It's this super rigorous set of rules designed to separate the real, legitimate projects from all the noise and greenwashing. It's all about making sure every single claim is backed up by real, verified results. Okay, so we've got this rulebook, but that leads to the next logical question, right? Who's actually writing these rules? And what kind of projects are we even talking about? Let's pull back the curtain and see who's running the show. The whole thing is managed by a nonprofit organization called Verra, and these guys are a pretty big deal. They are basically the global standard setters for this kind of stuff. Their entire mission is to bring integrity and transparency to a market that, let's be honest, desperately needs it. And what's really cool about the VCS is just how wide-ranging it is. This isn't just about planting trees, not by a long shot. We're talking about a huge variety of projects that tackle climate change from all kinds of angles, from reforestation and better forest management, to building wind farms, to capturing super potent methane gas from landfills. It's a truly comprehensive approach. But how can one standard possibly cover so many different types of projects? Well, the secret sauce is a set of core principles. These are the non-negotiable foundations that every single project has to be built on. This is what ensures that every carbon credit is telling a true story. Okay, here they are: relevance, completeness, consistency, accuracy, transparency, and conservativeness. Now, these aren't just buzzwords, okay? They're the actual pillars of the whole system, and they're all designed to build trust. Let's just zoom in on a couple of these, because they're really, really important. First up is conservativeness, and I actually love this one. Okay, imagine you're baking, and you're not totally sure if the recipe calls for 1 cup of sugar or 1.5. What do? You go with 1, right? Because you can always add more, but you can't take it away. That's exactly how the VCS treats carbon math. When in doubt, you always underestimate the benefit. This guarantees you're never overpromising. And then there's transparency. This one is a game changer. Historically, this market has been pretty opaque, kind of hard to see what's going on. But Verra's approach is to throw open the doors. They make all the data, all the documents public. They're basically inviting scientists, auditors, you, me, anyone to come and kick the tires and check their work. That's what real accountability is all about. So we have these guiding principles, but how do we know they're actually leading to a real-world impact? Well, this is where the rubber meets the road. Every single project has to pass a series of incredibly tough tests to prove its worth. And the first, and maybe the most critical test, is something called additionality. The best way to think of this is as the so what test. For a project's credits to count, it has to prove that it only happened because of the money from carbon credits. So, for example, if a company was already going to build a super profitable wind farm anyway, they can't then turn around and sell credits for it. That's just double dipping, and it's a huge no-no. And this is where it gets really scientific. Project developers have to create a detailed picture of what the future would look like without their project. That's called the baseline. Then they show what the future looks like with their project. And that gap, that difference between those two scenarios, that's the only thing that counts. That is the real additional climate impact. All right, so a project passes the additionality test. It's proven it's making a real difference. Great. But for projects based in nature, like forests, there's another massive challenge. What happens when nature, as it tends to do, has other plans? I mean, just think about this. It's kind of the nightmare scenario, right? A project has protected a huge forest for years, and companies have bought credits representing all that carbon stored in the trees. And then a massive wildfire sweeps through. Is all that climate progress just gone? Up in smoke? This is what the experts call non-permanence risk. It's this ghost that kind of haunts every nature-based climate solution. It's the constant threat that all that carbon we've worked so hard to store could get released right back into the atmosphere. Any system that wants to be taken seriously has to have a really good answer for this problem. And the VCS has a brilliant one. It's called the pooled buffer account. The easiest way to get your head around it is to think of it like a collective insurance policy for the climate. Every single nature-based project has to contribute a little bit in the form of its own carbon credits into this one big shared pot. And this is the clever part. Before a project can sell even one credit on the market, it first has to deposit a percentage of its credits into this shared buffer pool. And the amount it has to contribute depends on its risk. So a forest in a high fire zone, it's going to have to put more credits in the pot. It's a system that's both fair and incredibly smart. So here's the bottom line. When that unavoidable wildfire does happen, an equal number of credits are just canceled from that central insurance pool. This makes up for the loss. It's the backstop that guarantees that every single credit that's out there for sale represents real, permanent climate action. It makes investing in nature a much safer bet for our planet. Okay, so we've gotten into some of the technical details here, the core principles, the tough tests, this clever insurance system, but let's zoom out. Why does all of this stuff matter so much? What's the big picture here? Because at the end of the day, this is the difference between simply hoping for a better climate future and actually building one. Strong, transparent standards like the VCS are like the blueprints for that construction. They turn good intentions into real, measurable, and lasting results. So, next time you see a company talking about being carbon neutral or offsetting their emissions, maybe you'll think a little differently. You can ask the tough questions. You can ask if their credits are backed by a real standard, because now you know that behind that little certification, there's a whole world of rigor, transparency, and integrity. And that's a world we can all get behind.